The British Grand Prix gives us another unlikely podium. It proves to us that Lewis and Mercedes are so good that they could win on just 3 wheels. And it shows us that we must always watch till the end. Let's jump to start.
Hello guys, welcome in. This is the post-British Grand Prix race review episode. I'm here with 2 of my closest friends, as always. Yhancy, hello.
Hi.
Ruben, hey.
What's going on, guys?
So we're actually recording immediately after the race. But before even getting into the race, of course, we recorded Wednesday night, then Thursday. All heck breaks loose.
The dam broke.
Yes. Yeah. In terms of news, Ruben, lead us into it. What the heck happened at Racing Point?
Racing Point became madhouse. Paris had to go home, for a couple of days and caught the Rona. No, seriously. I believe Paris' mom got into an accident, so he had to go home to see her. And I guess throughout that process, he caught the virus because when he came back from the short trip, he tested positive for COVID-19 and had to pull out of the race. And that's when everything became a scramble. Yeah. Because they started fighting it within itself to see what the hell to do because they have no time. The drivers that had available, which is Van Dorn, Formula E, Gutierrez, probably Mexico.
Oh, he didn't have his super license.
And he doesn't have a super license. Yeah. So the one that was available was the Hulk himself.
The Hulk himself.
Sitting at home.
Well, first of all, let's wish Sergio Perez speedy recovery.
Both, him and his mom.
Yeah, and his mom as well.
Right. So first he tested inconclusive. And then they tested him again, and it turned out that he had the coronavirus.
Yes. Well, that's what happens normally when you get tested in any kind of testing anyways. Inconclusive, we test it again.
Well, which is a testament to how good the bubble that F1 is in right now, their bubbles and their protocols are working in order for this not to be a widespread issue if anybody else catches it.
Man, to be traveling to different countries, planes and all the other stuff, they're doing an incredible job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, obviously they're following a strict protocol within themselves in F1. But, dude, we were just like in a different country a couple of days ago. The trailers, it's everything. Like, remember, everything's trailer in. Yeah. So this passing to the street, I just got to imagine the process. When you get to a track, let's say, for example, what do they do to the trailers? Are they hosing them down with like a sanitizing?
Who knows?
So they're doing this extensive stuff that if we could imagine it, they're doing it. Right. That's my opinion on it. Like right now, the precautions that are being taken.
Or even things that we wouldn't even think about.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Like,
honest with you. If the thought process passes your mind, more than likely it's being done or being protected, so it will not happen. So for them to be going through multiple countries so quick and only Paris, because he probably left the vicinity because he had to go, unfortunately he had to go back home.
Well, he had family too visiting because it's his mom.
Exactly. So, and only, so far we've only gotten one driver. We're not doing bad. I thought, because of...
Well, consider that in Major League Baseball, they've already had to cancel multiple games due to issues with the Marlins and other teams that have had a number of positive tests. So I just kind of want to lay out the time frame, right?
By the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is baseball. They're only traveling within the U.S.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. F1 is traveling through countries. Obviously, same continent, but through countries.
Yeah, and I feel F1 is taking more precautions than baseball.
Way more.
To be honest with you. Go ahead. What were you saying?
No, so what was it? It was 3 p.m. where Racing Point called Hulkenberg. He was on his flight. He made it out to the factory from his house in Monaco to the factory right across the street from Silverstone to do the seat fitting. From there, he got tested in the morning for his own, the precaution, tested for COVID. And he was able to pass it literally right before practice started so that he could get into the seat. I forget what the local time is, 9 a.m. over there for them to be able to start free practice one.
I think it was like 15 minutes before.
Yeah, it was a logistical nightmare to accomplish all of that. And like Ruben was just saying, to follow all the precautions necessary. It's unbelievable that they were able to get it done.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to read about that story, it's a good article on motorsport.com that we can link in the show notes. That'll explain to you exactly all of the precautions and everything that Nico Hulkenberg had to go through in order for him to even get in that race seat for practice. So,
by the way, he was getting ready to go to the Nürburgring to do some competition stuff.
Yeah, he's gonna race some GT car.
Yeah, and he got the phone call for this.
Yeah.
You want to go back to F1 or go to the Nürburgring?
Oh, you ain't gonna say no.
So then, we'll talk about the race weekend itself, but it like we just talked about, it was unbelievable. As far as news breaking Thursday, for him to be able to get out there Friday, it was just an incredible feat. The only other piece of news coming into this weekend is we know Lewis Hamilton to be much more of an activist now than he's ever been in his career with the whole Black Lives Matter thing. He and Grosjean, who turns out to be the union representative or the top union guy among the drivers, they had a conversation and they came to some sort of understanding as to why Hamilton felt that Grosjean was not respecting, I guess, the activism enough and, et cetera. Is there anything else to really comment there?
No, I just want to clarify, when you say union, it's pretty much the Drivers Association or the Drivers Syndicate.
The GDPA, which is the Grand Prix Drivers
Association. Yeah, because probably some parts of the world they'll probably call it like association or a syndicate. Here in the US, we call it, most of the times we call that the union.
What I like about the situation is that at least Hamilton is willing to have these uncomfortable conversations, and the drivers are willing to have those conversations with him. And just reading up on it, it seems like, and looking at Roman Grosjean's comments,
yes,
it seems like he was put in a tough position because obviously he's the rep for the drivers, so he has to listen to both sides, and he has to represent basically both sides or the opposite side. It came out as if he was very insensitive, which was just watching the sport for so many years. It doesn't seem like Roman Grosjean is not an insensitive guy as far as when it comes to issues like this, but we never know.
Yeah.
But he seems very, very genuine, and he had a very good conversation with Lewis, and it shows that Lewis is also willing to have these conversations where he's not making anybody else uncomfortable, but just pointing out the facts and just having the conversation, because that's what we have to learn. And I think they both came out learning something new. But Grosjean's explanation sounds plausible, where he's in a tough situation because he does have to represent both sides of the equation. And I think we're in agreement that other drivers support the movement, but they also can't be forced to take an action that they don't feel that they wouldn't want to be forced to do anything. But at the very least, we can take solace in the fact that the conversations are being had and the conversation is being moved forward, where the point of ending racism, not just being anti, but just ending racism, is moving forward, and people are having a different look at it and a different perspective, where we can actually get to a point where we can start down the road to stopping discrimination.
Yeah, I think the point with them having the conversation clear a lot of stuff as well when it came to the way that it was being perceived. As it was being brought out to us out here. Mm-hmm. So them talking at the level that it came out now after their talk, it kind of also brought it down very much notches compared to how it was being fed at the beginning.
It seemed like it was very tense.
Exactly, at the beginning, yeah.
But this is why you have the conversation.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's why
you don't plant your foot down and stick to your one side, because that's when the tensions start building up. Exactly. You talk to each other and we figure this out together. We can't do it all alone.
I like it.
So hats off to Roman Grosjean and hats off to Lewis Hamilton for keeping his foot on the gas.
Yes, sir.
And keeping this conversation going.
Right? All right. Let's move on to the British GP race review.
Gentlemen, a short view back to the past.
Still my favorite drop. Let's go back to front bottom to top. Just reviewing the teams and their race weekend, kind of like the same format that we had before. We'll start with bottom of the bottom, which in this case is Alfa Romeo. Kimi finished in 17th and Antonio Giovinazzi in 14th. That car is it's a dog.
It's not good aerodynamically. It's not good. Obviously, the engine's down.
A dog is fast. It's not a dog. It's something else.
Greyhound, maybe.
Yeah. Nah, man, that car is nowhere, to be honest with you. And the engine doesn't help. Ferrari obviously has their problems with their engine this year, and it is horrible. It's what do we say is like almost down 100 horsepower?
100 horsepower, yeah, total, which is amazing to me how you can fall from grace that fast. But it's not helping any of the Ferrari customer teams, and there's really not much to talk about there. I mean, no, the only thing of note that happened during the race, Kimi's front wing ended up. I don't even know how it broke. They didn't really show it on the TV director.
It looks like he just bounced and it hit off the ground and it just broke.
I think he was,
or it might have been that he had previous damage and that just dislodged it. So
yeah,
but there was no real clear explanation.
Where it really happened was like pretty much right by that curve where Kafia went out. Okay. It was around there. It was around those turns.
Well, the wind was picking up. It was around there. It seemed like when Kvyat crashed, the wind took him out. So I mean,
yeah. Either way,
yeah.
Kimi finished last of all the drivers that finished, and Giovinazzi.
It's Giovinazzi.
Yeah, not really much to talk about.
It is what it is.
All right, Ruben's favorite team, Williams. Russell finished 12th. Latifi 15th. He actually did not spin during the race. So
congratulations to him.
It's the first session that he did not spin.
He's trying to be a 4-time world champion season. Like Sebastian Vettel this season.
So Saturdays, George Russell continues to survive Q3, makes it into Q2. But, from there, nothing to really write home about today. Their legendary updates that they were going to bring to this race didn't really materialize into anything.
Seems like it only works in qualifying.
Yeah.
Pretty much that's what they keep saying over and over. That they're saying they have a good car in qualifying, but not a good car to race. Yeah. They can't follow. They can't do a lot of stuff with that car. And
well, at the very
when you're
least,
in the back, you got to follow.
Yeah.
At the very least, it's showing how good Russell is, and we can be excited maybe when he does get a good seat that he'll be up there racing with the young guns.
Williams needs to start hiring some people from Racing Point, some of the photographers, and bring them over, copy that car, so we could get some pace on that car. We need Williams back to the front.
Yeah. So
keep dreaming, right?
I don't know if I could say that Williams' car is getting better.
No, it's not.
It's more of Alfa Romeo, Haas.
Oh, it's definitely better than last year.
Well, yeah, but everybody else is also much worse. So it's...
So they improved while Haas and Alfa went backwards, and it's making them shine.
Alfa Romeo, yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's not much of an improvement, but it's still better.
We just have to hold out hope for 2022 with them. Hopefully they can make it there, and then hopefully they are.
It seems like that's the case for most of the teams on the grid.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not looking good. And then Silverstone again next week. I don't see them doing much better. Next team up, Haas. They we're gonna disagree here, but all right. So K-Mag did not finish because of a collision with Albon. I think it was lap 2. Lap 1. So K-Mag was ahead, and Albon kind of slipped in on the inside of, I believe it was the last turn going into that start-finish straight. My belief is that K-Mag should have left Albon enough room, because if I'm ahead, I understand that if I'm ahead, the person behind me can't crash, and Albon did end up getting a penalty. But I need to protect my race. I don't care about, squeezing this guy to the point where I get hit. I need to protect my race and my result.
But that's why he got the penalty.
No, he was
that's why Albon got the penalty.
Well, I feel both of them have to protect their race. It's lap 1, guys. Come on.
Where was Albon going to go? Into the gravel?
Just give us some time. You have a much faster car than this guy.
But who are you saying that whose fault it is?
I'm saying that it's K-Mag's fault for not leaving more room on the inside.
No, he was ahead of him by half a car length.
I understand your point.
He was ahead of him by half a car length. There was no room to make an overtake there. There's no point in. There's no even. You're having a bad weekend already.
Yes,
and then I defend the album. I think I rate him, and you obviously do not like him.
I don't have. It's not that I don't like him. It's I don't view him too favorably right now.
So you don't like him.
He has issues with the car, but
he does have issues with the car. But you're already having a bad weekend. You were finishing out of the top 10 in qualifying where you should be at least in the top 10. He got too desperate. He basically showed his age. He got desperate. He went in for an overtake that just was not there. And K-Mag has every right to take that racing line tight into that corner. And he, like I said, he was a half a car length, if not even more ahead. Why would you expect the car to be even there? There's no point.
I don't know.
Listen,
to me, K-Mag going further out, staying on the outside, it gives you. It's not the racing line, but you will carry more speed than what Albon carried into that straight. You would stay ahead.
No, not necessarily. You're in a car that doesn't have a good engine. So if you let somebody get into the inside lane and get a better exit off that turn, you're definitely not gonna have enough power to defend them. So Albon is going to overtake him. And Haas is just what Haas is doing, which you got to commend what they're doing. They're making very extreme strategy calls because that's the only way they're gonna get any good results. Just what they did with Grosjean today.
Listen, on the album with K-Mag thing, I believe it was obviously inexperience from Albon because we're in lap 1, dude. Chill out.
Yeah.
You want to get a bunch of passes. I understand it because and he still managed to get a lot of passes.
It's very similar to the crash between Vettel and Leclerc in the second race. Was the second race?
Second race,
yeah, where he just went in for a gap that just wasn't there, and it's the first lap.
But as a racer, if you see a gap and you don't take it, you're no longer racing. You're just being.
Ayrton sent a quote. Yes.
Yeah, but you gotta be smarter than that. You can't be reckless, man.
Well, that's my point. Who was out of the race at that point? It wasn't Albon.
But Magnussen, I don't feel Magnussen was being reckless.
I blame both of them.
I don't know.
K-Mag has a reputation for
That's
being
the
aggressive.
Easy way out.
I know, but K-Mag has a reputation for being aggressive anyways. Albon have to think about the whole spectrum
there
too.
You go.
Like, hey, let me chill out. It's lap 1. Probably if he would have not gone for that gap, probably in the main straight he would have passed him. Who knows?
I don't know.
Because he has a much faster
Albon would have passed him eventually. He has a faster car.
K-Mag is not an easy guy to pass. He's not going to give it to you. You got to take it.
You got to take it when you can. So you're not stuck
is not an easy guy
in
to
a
pass.
train like we saw later on.
But the car is so slow. It's such a big difference between those two cars, man.
Hey, look at Grosjean.
And it's not we're not in Hungary. We're not in Monaco. We're in Silverstone where you can overtake.
Well, the race didn't show that today, okay?
So not an exciting race. But speaking of Grosjean and taking risks, there was a safety car to get K-Mag off of the track because his tire came off.
On lap 1.
On lap 1. Then there was another safety car that happened later on in the race. Not much later on, but Kvyat lost control of his car. Daniel Kvyat lost control of his car and ended up going into the wall and like exploding the car.
That was crazy.
That was an absolutely ridiculous crash. But
I think the wind caught him out, man.
We'll get into that.
Everybody ended up crashing. Or, I'm sorry. Everybody.
Demolition Derby.
Yep. Everybody ended up pitting in that safety car, except for Romain Grosjean. Because he did not pit, his track position went from wherever he was up to 5th. And it was interesting to see and entertaining to see how he was fighting in the top 10 4 points as long as he could, because remember he's now on older mediums that everybody's on their new set of tires trying to get past them, and they really couldn't.
They couldn't do it.
So Sainz ends up passing him first, knocking him down to 6, and then you see for a lot of laps Ricciardo is just biding his time and waiting essentially for the tires to fall off before really making a move. Then you see Grosjean fall behind Stroll, and it just becomes a chain reaction to the point where he has to pit, and that ends up putting him all the way back to the rear of the race, and he ends up finishing 16th.
It just goes to show you what has basically fallen back on, is making these extreme strategy calls, which to their credit they did in Hungary?
Yes. Pitting right before the start.
And they got a decent result. They got some points. They know that they have a bad car. They know that it's not fast, not through corners, not in the straight, and they're extremely down on power. They're making and K-Mag even admitted they have to make the risks. You have to take these risky strategy calls. I think what they were doing was that they left Roman Grosjean out to get track position, and then maybe hoping for maybe like another safety car where they can pit him quick and change the tires and still be there. Obviously, that gamble didn't work, but that's the only way they were going to get a good result. Either way, if they didn't take that risk, they were still going to finish where they finished today. But at least you give yourself a chance, because you're definitely not going to do it based off of merit.
Right. Say another safety car happens, then you could just pit. You get a cheap pit.
Exactly. And you get on a better tire, and then you can go. I think that's what they were hoping for. It's it's a prayer. It's a Hail Mary. But listen, it's better than not taking the chance.
Listen, as bad as that car is this year, that's the only way they're going to get some sort of position or get closer to try to get to the points.
Yes.
Taking those risky decisions or risky strategies that in Hungary, it worked for them.
Absolutely.
But they have to continue doing that because they have the car's not a dog. The car's like an elephant. I'm trying to look for like a slow animal.
Snails.
There you go.
My only concern is, does Gene Haas want to stick around?
He will.
You think so?
Yeah, I think
this team is just not doing it.
I think he'll stick around and see how 2022 plays out. They have gotten progressively worse, unfortunately. Last year it wasn't the engine. Last year it was they just couldn't understand how to warm up the tires. Yeah. But they were on the up and up for 2 years in a row, man. They haven't been here that long, but again, when you own a racing team, you're not gonna make a lot of money, especially if you're not winning.
I got a blank.
So we'll see how that pans out.
I have a blank in years. How long did it take Red Bull to get the first not win, but the first
podium?
Not the first podium. The first title win. When Vettel got his first.
Dude, I don't remember.
I don't know. It took them more than 10 years.
Exactly. So, dude, not everybody's Braun. That was the only team
but
that
they
came
had
in and they got the first year.
I mean,
That's
Braun was Honda before.
I know, but what I'm saying is,
Haas
when you start a team,
Haas was an entirely new team, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Yeah, so
it takes time.
I mean, the fact that even in 2017 they were able to finish up. In 2018, they thought they had a good car. They just couldn't understand the tires.
I think if they get,
we'll see. But I think that these smaller teams are relying on the rule changes and the parity and the cap cost to get better and to bring in the field closer, because obviously the way this is panning out, this is not survivable for any team financially.
Listen, when they sign Paris, they will sign Paris eventually, and Paris brings the sponsors and brings the money, is gonna be a big change for them. I believe that's what they're missing.
And that is
but who will you get rid of?
Grosjean.
Yeah, for sure.
Poor
Grosjean, I think, knows he's on his way out anyways.
You need K-Mag, and if they can get Paris to bring their money in, you take advantage.
That's the smartest move to make.
And it's the target market for Haas with his machinery, machinery business in the Americas, because honestly, the Grand Prix being canceled in all of the Americas, including Brazil, Latin America, Mexico, Latin America, hurts them more, because that's where the bulk of his business is made here in this side of the world.
So just to loop back, Red Bull's first entry was 2005 Australian Grand Prix. Their first constructors was in 2010.
About 5 years.
I don't think Haas is going to be in that area, but
there were Jordan.
There was a new Concord agreement between there, so it's hard to really judge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gotcha.
Speaking of Red Bull, their sister team AlphaTauri. So we already talked about Daniel Kvyat had a major crash during the race early on.
He got caught up by the wind by a lot of drivers did. I think he was going into that car. There was probably a wind gust. That's what it looked like, because he oversteered. He understeered.
But it looked, when he got out of the car, like he was blaming himself.
Yeah, I mean,
he was really pissed off.
Yeah, but I mean, because you have some control of where the car is going, but at the same time, what it looked like was what the car went out from his back went out from under him, the back of the car. It seemed like, and that was an issue for most of the weekend where the teams were reporting about wind gusts because it was very windy. And obviously, when you take these cars, and imagine yourself, let's say you're driving in a road car and you feel this huge gust of wind, you feel the car shaking a little bit. Imagine these cars who are very sensitive to the wind when you're driving at 180, 190 miles an hour going through a corner, which
That's
is probably
me on a regular day, by the way.
Yeah, well, good for you, buddy. Good for you, daredevil. You were driving these cars at 180 miles an hour through a corner, which we know that there's not a crazy amount of heavy braking zones at the Silverstone. When you're driving that fast, if you don't take that turn right and you get a gust of wind, he understeered, basically meaning that the back went out from under him, and he literally just flew into the wall.
So let's not forget that Q2 qualifying 2, Lewis Hamilton also
did that as well.
Also did that, not to the same degree, but he ended up spinning out and causing a red flag for the qualifying session.
The third qualifying
session.
Session.
Taking a point from our good friend, Spinderella Latifi, maybe Kafir got on the power too soon.
Is Latifi taking the crown from Vettel?
From Vettel, hell
right now,
man.
yeah.
Look, with the streak that he had going on, that in every session, whether a race, practice, or qualify, he will spin.
I think this is the competition that we gotta. That
was the dance
the way this season's going.
he definitely won the dance off.
I think the Spinderella Championship is more interesting than the Drivers' Championship.
I think Kafir got on the power too quick or too soon out of the turn, and that's why he lost the car mainly. And the wind probably didn't help. And all that other stuff.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not totally blaming it on the wind. I'm just saying that it's a fact.
Well, I'm saying that because of his reaction.
Yesterday, Lando Norris was also saying kind of the same thing, that he felt he was over driving to compensate for the wind. That ends up costing you tenths on laps versus like if you're going and your whole race it's going fine. The wind is unpredictable, so you can't drive based on a fear of the wind, and that's something that Lando Norris said yesterday that he ended up having to correct on his own.
If you don't have a confidence in the car, where you put the input meaning the steering. If you don't have that confidence that where you put that car, where you're steering that car is going to get you the result that you want, then you're going to be a little bit hesitant to turn in that car, especially when you have a win. So
that's been a part of being comfortable in the car.
Yeah.
So let's give you somebody who I think is really driving the crap out of his car all year, but's going under the radar is Pierre Gasly. He qualified 11th. He's doing really well in the car, essentially. He ends up finishing 7th. He kept a low profile during the whole race. At the end, he ends up he overtook Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll to finish in the points in 7th place.
Amazing drive by him.
He's
amazing drive, and I
finished ahead of Albon.
Super amazing.
Amazing drive, and I wish we would have seen that last year when he was in that Red Bull. He is showing to be a very good driver. Maybe he just got moved up too quick. And when you get into Red Bull, especially when you're going up against Max Verstappen and even just the Red Bull program, dude, you're on the fire quick, bro.
Yeah,
you're in the hot seat super quick.
Since Gasly, let's put a little harsh. Since Gasly got demoted, he's been doing very good. Now, and this year, he's showing like he's really settling in his seat because now he doesn't have all this pressure that being on the top team or being on the mother team brought to him. Look at what's happening to Albon.
Yeah.
Everything that's happening to Albon, I believe, is because of pressure. He needs to perform to the top. They're not letting him drive. Yo, why are you doing today? Oh, what do you mean? Oh, I commit for 4. No, dude, if you're not going to get for 4, don't say that. I believe driving at Red Bull and seeing Max, dude, Max was by himself in the front.
Well, yeah, that's the other problem.
And seeing your competitor, that's where Gasly, I believe, failed. All that pressure did not let you develop to the driver you're being homegrown to be. And it just messes up with your head, messes with your, with everything.
And in life, I mean, when you're lucky enough, not lucky enough, but when you can get to the point where you have some level of success, doesn't matter the area. The road to success also includes failures. And I think last year, that's what happened with Gasly. He had his failure, but he did get an experience of what it is to be on a top team. Now he knows what it is. He knows what he needs. And now he's just training himself to be ready when he's get called up. I think eventually he will get called up. I think he's that talented and he's showing his talent. Let's just see. I mean, obviously, when you're on the top, you got to deal with pressure. You got to deal with people coming after you. He just has to show that he can handle that.
Just maybe it's a thing for Red Bull. I we'll get to it, but Alex Albon has been complaining about his car, and they even admitted, Red Bull, the team admitted that his car is not balanced the way it should be. Maybe it's just an issue where they pour so much energy into Max's car. And I think we started seeing that when Daniel Ricciardo was still there too. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there were some issues where Max would get the upgrades that Danny Rick would not get. Granted, that was going to be their future number one driver, but then also trying to compare, even though it's supposed to be a very similar car, Gasly or Albon to Max Verstappen, it's probably just not the right thing to do.
Yeah, but, at the end of the day, you as a driver, because, yes, you drive for the team. But if you want to get anywhere, if you want to keep moving up, you got to put in your part and you got to put in the laps, regardless of what they give you. A good driver gets what they get and they drive the heck out of the car. And you can see that with Max, because obviously that car's not that good. And yeah, maybe Max might be getting better updates, but he's still getting second places. It doesn't matter how big the upgrades are, you're still not supposed to be that far back.
True.
And I think Albon did a fairly decent job considering all the stuff that happened to him during the race. But either way, you still should be closer to Max.
I agree. The stuff that happened to him during the race.
At some point, you got to stop making excuses for yourself, and you got to drive the hell out of that car and get yourself a better result. You gotta make it within yourself to get closer to your teammate. Nobody's expecting him to beat Max because Max is a once in a lifetime talent. But you got to get closer, and you got to stop making excuses. And you can't be saying, "Oh, my engineer put me in the wrong place," etc. No, stop that. Drive the hell out of that car, man.
Listen, when I first started playing the F1 game, if you're doing bad, they tell you right away in the game you need to be this much time from your teammate.
And this is a game.
And it's a game. So imagine in real life what they're telling you.
Exactly.
But I'm glad we agree that something happened to Alex that that it wasn't that Alex happened to something else. I agree. So, Racing Point. I say it very slowly because that's how they were this week.
Oh my God, man.
Dude.
Completely
we all predicted a Mercedes 1-2 with Perez or a Racing Point in third. Coming into the race this morning, Hulkenberg could not even start due to a power unit issue that disqualified him from the race, meaning couldn't go.
Couldn't even get the car started.
Yeah. Stroll, on the other hand, he showed why.
Don't be nice.
He's trying to word it out.
Yeah, he showed why we don't view him in a light that is any kind of favorable. He was in good equipment, great equipment.
So he sucks.
Listen, this next couple of days, I would be digging in to what happened at Racing Point. And I hope I find that there was a problem with the car. That's the only thing that's going to get his stock price on me, with Stroll a little bit up. But if there's nothing wrong with that car, what the hell is wrong with you, my man? And this is a guy they're thinking about keeping.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's dad on
the team, I know.
Yeah.
But
so
listen.
We were talking about Grosjean leading a train from 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, where Carlos Sainz passed him. Eventually, Daniel Ricciardo passed him. But then, Stroll passes him. Obviously, the tires were gone. But Stroll, in a much better car than Daniel Ricciardo, could not get past him. And this is the second time this year we see it. We saw that in Austria. I believe it was the second time.
It's the second fastest car on the grid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where Stroll had to dive bomb Ricciardo. He didn't even pass him. He just dive bombed him.
To be able to pass.
Yeah.
To be able to get a pass.
His racecraft is horrible. He's not a good racer. He looks like an amateur. He looks like he belongs in F2 instead of F1. He's not good, man. at first you want to give him the benefit of the doubt because yes, he has won in the lower categories, not in F2, but he won in
That's
F3.
what he was not. He was. You should go to F2.
You want to give him but now you're in a good car, you're battling at the top or even at the top of the midfield, and you can't even get that car. You barely got the car into the points. In a track that's supposed to suit you better than it did in Hungary.
Yes.
So you're trying to tell me that you're going to do better on a slower track than on a faster track when you have a Mercedes engine and you have a car that's modeled after last year's Mercedes, which blew out the field?
That is blowing the field still today.
Well, I'm just talking about last year's car.
Last year's car is still blowing everybody today.
Why are you even sniffing in 10th? And I'm surprised he even made it into the points because he was running out of the points most of the trades. Well, he stayed in the points, right? But come on, man. You're in the second fastest car by far in a track that suits your car. And then the fact, and you got to blame the team too because at least they didn't even get the other car on the track.
That's what I'm saying.
They didn't even give yourself a chance.
In the next couple of days, I'll be digging to see if there was actually something wrong, to the team itself because obviously they couldn't get one car to start. Maybe this one they put like was it to start up the spray when it's cold outside. You put the in the maybe they did that to this car to start.
That's why they need an experienced driver, man. And I don't even know. We'll see how Checo comes back and maybe he can put in some better races. But he hasn't had any good races either this season.
Is Checo going to come back?
Yeah, he will. Eventually, he will.
He'll eventually.
Not for next race, but the race
Yeah,
after.
but he'll come back eventually. But he hasn't put in any good performances either. You're in a good car. You gotta get the results in. There's no excuses, man. You're in the top. You're in the top level of motorsport, the pinnacle of motorsport.
Yes.
And there's no excuses. And you got the resources. You build a good car. It's super fast. It's fast in practice, but it's not fast in the race, and it's not fast in qualifying. And then and Stroll is just showing me what he showed every other race. He can't overtake.
No, he can't.
He sucks.
Stroll actually led practice 2. He was 3rd place in practice 1. Practice 3.
Practice 2 doesn't win.
He was yeah, I know, but I'm just saying
who pushes
he was
in practice
fast.
2? Who pushes in practice 2? People that want to make a point. That's it. Stroll made a point. Oh, I'm still a little fast. But everybody's like, okay, we're not pushing.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about this guy. We had, what was it? It was Grosjean in 5th, Sainz in 6th, Ricciardo in 7th, and then I think it was either Norris or Stroll in 8th. And Stroll just could not get anything done. He was threatened a lot of the race by Esteban Ocon in a Renault. He's not even their top driver, and that car isn't that great. And Ocon ended up passing him. I don't know what to say here. He actually would have been passed by Vettel too, Lance Stroll, if the race was another couple of laps longer. Yep. I just don't know what to say about this guy.
Sucks.
I guess that's the right word, yeah. Anything else on Racing Point other than their crazier weekend? I hope that things are a little more sane next weekend, and I hope that
if they don't get their act together, I'm gonna be really pissed because now you're affecting my fantasy team.
No, about their crazy weekend, Hulk was perfect for them. He was available, but it came out also they were saying that
they can't even get the car on the grid,
I know,
bro.
Yeah, but that's part of the reason I'm talking about with Hulk is because the bringing of Hulk was a lot of people surprised. But remember, he was with Force India for a lot of years, and when they took this team to administration, it was to save the employees. Those employees are still there that work with Hulk, so he was a perfect fit to come in. I would have loved to see Hulk in this race so he could get more comfortable in the car. So next week he would have a better result. But
he probably would have had a better result than Stroll even if he...
Today, yeah. Stroll sucks.
I guess you guys all know what we feel about Stroll. But moving on, next best finishing team, McLaren. They are continuing to show that they are... I really hesitate to say this now because, you know what? Let me take back everything I just said. But Carlos Sainz finished 13th after his tire blew up at the end, and Lando Norris finished 5th. Where the heck is this car compared to Ferrari? They could not catch up to Leclerc.
I told you guys
what
last week that the McLaren is not faster than the Ferrari.
I still think they are.
And I know the Ferrari is not good at all. So, and I'm not even going to try to even play up the Ferrari as a team, because not even their chairman is doing that. But McLaren seems like they have a good chassis, but their engine is not up to par.
Good arrow.
Good arrow.
And their engine is not up.
Yeah, exactly. Their engine is not up to par. The Renault engine is horrible. So, and I asked this question to you guys while we were watching the race. If the Ferrari engine is down close to 100 horsepower, where the hell is that Renault engine? How bad is it?
Well,
and now we see why Red Bull was trying to run away from Renault.
Well, obviously,
and they've had like 3 years to get it fixed.
Ferrari's down the horsepower, but Renault never had them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But if you're down by that much, then it's the engine. It's not the aero. It's not the aerodynamics.
Well, we still got to give them credit. They've improved a lot. They're missing the engine. Considering where they're coming from.
Going back to McLaren, unfortunately, Sainz had the puncture at the end, which was obviously a problem for everybody. Just trying to get to the end on tires, because the tire degradation seemed to be. It's always an issue
in Silverstone.
We mentioned
2017.
Yeah, it's always an issue in Silverstone where people just have to nurse their tires at the end. Especially now that they had repaved it maybe 2 years back. Where if it gets too hot, then the tire degradation is crazy. Because it literally burns the tires. And obviously, we'll talk about what happened with Mercedes later, as we get to them. But considering they were up, McLaren did a good job, bar the puncture. They were going to finish both cars were going to finish in the points, and they've been consistent. I think they've been the most consistent team. Besides Mercedes, the most consistent team besides Mercedes in the races, where they're just consistently scoring points. Their two drivers are on top of their game. Norris has improved so much since last season.
A ton.
And Carlos Sainz continues his excellent driving. They're gonna be in for a good year. I think they're probably gonna, finish
best of the rest.
The best of the rest. I don't, if you still counting as Ferrari as one of the top 3 teams, I think the battle will be between Ferrari and McLaren.
McLaren is currently third place with 51, I guess, constructor points. So my only issue with what you just said is that I feel like their car is showing that it's an okay car. But what I think that they need, and it's what they're going to get next year, is a real dog of a driver, meaning like that he will attack, is Daniel Ricciardo. They need Norris and Sainz they're okay. They're good, right? But you need somebody that's going to really, really push that car to its limit. And we saw Ricciardo, it was Ricciardo, Norris, Stroll, and Sainz almost all race fighting it out. And to us, and it's something that we talked about in the preview, is that Renault does not even belong in that conversation the way that we're talking about right now.
So they don't need a dog, they need a honey badger. Honey badger don't care.
Yep.
Honey badger gonna overtake.
Yeah. I think that's their problem. We saw they were 5 or 6 seconds behind. Well, Sainz was 5 or 6 seconds behind Leclerc, and Norris was immediately behind them, and they just couldn't close it up. Like, we talked about Ferrari being down 100 horsepower. I really feel that if it was a Ricciardo, you would have seen that gap closed and challenging Leclerc for what ended up being a third place and a podium.
Yeah, Ricciardo is probably, I don't think he's underrated, but I don't think people give him enough credit of how good he is. And if he gets I'm excited to see him with
McLaren.
With McLaren, with the Mercedes engine, if they can continue developing the aero, because it's obviously pretty good that they've been very consistent. If they can make improvements, it's going to be the same car. That's going to be fun to watch. And with him and Norris, if the Norris continues improving, it's going to be something to watch for, obviously, next season. But they're doing pretty well right now. Again, they got unlucky with the puncture. It is what it is.
I think McLaren, from where they're coming from, they keep making the jumping hurdles as far as the improvement they're making. Because before they were all the way in the back when they had Alonso. So, and now they're on the top of the midfield. So you're like, whoa, they are making a lot of improvement. Both guys have shown that they're very good. When they get Ricciardo, of course, they're going to be super hungry because Ricciardo wants more. They're going to make a lot of improvement. But we have to give credit to Sainz and Norris. Sainz, he's shown that he's good. What was it? He was like 5th before the puncher or something like that? He was 4th?
He was 4th.
4th before the puncher. And Norris was not far behind him. They stayed together throughout almost the whole race.
He was
what
4th, yes.
what they have done, and it's a template I think Ferrari will be following for the next few years, is that they took themselves, before when they had Alonso, it was like, oh no, we're going to get better. They took themselves out of that pressure cooker. They got 2 relatively young drivers, didn't put too much pressure on them, let them develop. They let their team develop without having all this pressure on them. And now you're seeing the fruits of it. Yeah. And I think that's what John Elkann wants to do with Ferrari. Just take them out of we're not going to win. We're not going to win. So don't expect that. But just know that we are rebuilding to be competitive in the future.
So the only other thing for me was that the TV director, again screwing us over, at the end of the race, Ricciardo ended up overtaking Norris. They didn't really show it. Don't know what happened, but Norris was in line after Sainz's puncture to get that 4th place, but Ricciardo overtook him.
Honey Badger.
Yeah. Moving on to the next team, Ferrari. Sebastian Vettel, 11th place, Charles Leclerc, 3rd place. So really the only thing here to talk about with Sebastian Vettel is that the car all weekend, they must have had like a gremlin or something. He had issues with his intercooler starting from free practice 1. I think I was watching free practice 2, and then he had issues with the pedals. That when do you hear a Formula 1 car having issues with it? When do you have a regular car having issues with the pedals? So it was just one of those weekends for him and for them that just whatever, just forget about it.
So we're just going to not talk about how great Charles Leclerc was this weekend.
I'm getting...
Yes, go ahead.
We're talking about better right now.
Roll your eyes back.
Yeah.
Like the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Doom.
Yeah. The darkness is still...
The darkness is consuming you.
So let's get to Charles Leclerc, who took advantage of a lot of mishaps happening around him.
It's what a great driver does.
Yes,
go ahead.
What did he qualify?
Go ahead.
What did he qualify?
He qualified 4th.
He had an awesome weekend.
And he stayed 4th. In a car that's not very good, and we can all agree on that. Okay? World Championship material right there. The guy put his head down after a few bad races and brought in the points for a team that is struggling like crazy. Which is something that Vettel used to do, which is something that Hamilton does when a team is down, which is something any great driver does, is what Leclerc is doing. Go ahead, keep rolling your eyes back, man.
Vettel is just doomed.
Keep
Ferrari
hating.
because nothing goes good for him.
The darkness just consumed us. But Leclerc had a great weekend, finishing in the podium and qualifying 3rd in a car that does not happen to be there. He had a lonely race all week, but he kept the car in the race.
But that speaks to him. We had the 2 Mercedes out in front, and we had the Red Bull, and then we had Charles Leclerc out way in front of the pack. McLaren never even really came close to him. So I will grudgingly give credit where it's due.
Strong, baby.
Yeah.
Let's go Leclerc.
Listen, that's the comment that I was saving it like towards the end of what we're doing, but this weekend in that aspect to me sucked. It looked like everybody was just nurturing everything. Oh, I don't want to push. I don't want to go fast. Oh, the guys in the front, they're all the way over there. Okay, leave them alone. We don't want to get there. Do I need to pass Stroll? Well, for what? Let me just nurse my tires. Oh, do I need to pass Grosjean? No. Come on.
The only question that I have with Ferrari
this weekend missed aggressiveness. Even though some were aggressive, but it needed more. Because there were a couple of cars that did not belong there.
I think the conditions,
Grosjean, Stroll.
Yeah, I think the conditions didn't bear that out too well. Just because I think a lot of teams were managing their tires because of the heat and the wind, also catching people out. Just with Ferrari, what I would like to know, and I guess obviously every race that we have, we will know more. But what I want to know if is the car getting better as far as not the engine, obviously we know the engine, but as far as aerodynamically, are they progressing better where they can be in fourth and grab an odd podium like Leclerc has done 2 races so far this year when something goes wrong ahead of him? Or is it Leclerc driving the wheels off the car? We don't know that. And I'm not even going to come, as much as I love Leclerc, I'm not even going to suggest that the only reason that Ferrari are doing good is just because of him. It's a team sport. So that is a question that we all should be looking for an answer for going into the future. Is Ferrari at the very least getting better with their updates aerodynamically? Because we know the engine is nowhere and they can't do anything to the engine. Or is it Leclerc driving the wheels out of that car to make them better than what they are? A lot like what Max is doing this season with Red Bull.
Leclerc had a good weekend.
Absolutely. But I agree with Yhancy. We just don't know with them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we're just the nature of the season. I don't know if we're going to know where everybody stands, even at the end of the year.
Is what they were saying with is we're ending of July. Hulk didn't have a contract last year. He only missed 3 races.
Crazy.
We're in July.
That's a good point. Wow.
So you could say, oh, but he's been out for almost a year. He only missed 3 races.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Speaking of
the year we're having, man.
Hulkenberg and his former team, Renault, the 3rd best team on the day. Daniel Ricciardo, 4th place finish, and Esteban Ocon, 6th place finish. They qualified 8th and 9th, respectively, Ricciardo and Ocon. I gotta say, all kidding aside, Ocon is showing me a year out. He's still kind of got it. He's still doing really well. He's taking opportunities as they come to him. He's not forcing anything. I'm impressed with the way that he's driving. Granted, he had Sainz and Bottas that fell out, but he would have still finished in 8th place if they were still back in the equation. What do you guys think? Yhancy, what do you think as far as the Renault car itself?
I don't think it's very good. Obviously, we talked about the engine a little bit earlier, and it doesn't have the power that it needs to not only defend itself when you're going into a corner and you have somebody following you. You don't have enough power to get ahead of that car that's right behind you, but you also don't have enough power to overtake, which I think was evident with Daniel Ricciardo when he was battling. Who was it that he was battling? Roman Grosjean.
And then we saw it. Granted, the Racing Point is much more powerful, but we saw it with Ocon and Stroll.
Right. Yeah. Right. So the Renault engine is not very good. Their aerodynamics are not very good either. It's not it's not a very good car. I think it's a testament to how good their drivers are. Obviously, Danny Rick is one of the best drivers in the grid. And Ocon, before he left,
he wasn't bad.
No, I mean, he didn't leave. He was forced to leave. But I thought it was a travesty that he was not on the grid for that 1 year, because he really showed that he was improving and showed that he was going to be at least a solid driver that deserves to be on the F1 grid. So I'm glad for him that he's it's always tough when you go against Danny Rick, but he's showing that he does belong, and I think he's going to be improving considering that he was out for a year.
You think that's tough, Danny Rick? Imagine next year next to Fernando Alonso.
Oh, then now we're going to see.
Where he destroyed Van Dorn.
Yeah, well, now we're going to see what he's made of. And again, the first person that you have to beat when you're on a team is your teammate.
Yep.
That's the one person that you have to beat. And this is why Albon is getting so much criticism, because he's against Max. It's why Leclerc has been almost elevated in his status, because he beat Sebastian Vettel. You have to beat your teammate. And it's the same reason for you see Gasly and AlphaTauri with Kvyat. Gasly came in and outright when he got back onto that team was beating Kvyat, even though Kvyat was having a good season last season.
And I think he wrecked Brendan Hartley back then too.
Yeah,
back when they were both
exactly. So you have to, if your first goal coming into any season is beating your teammate because you have equal machinery, or quote unquote equal machinery. We'll see where Ocon is. I think he's getting a good primer with Danny Rick because he's an excellent driver. We'll see what happens with Fernando Alonso. But also Fernando Alonso's been out for 2 years. It's going to be out for 2 years at this point.
I don't think Ocon is doing that bad when you're his teammate right now. He's not that far from Rick. He was out for a year. I think with Fernando Alonso, he's going to have another challenge.
Yeah.
But he also is going to have a year back.
I think he's going to do well, man.
He will.
I like him. I like him as a driver.
And he wants to be in F1, so he's going to be fighting.
For sure.
We saw a very patient Daniel Ricciardo all race. Like we talked about earlier with the whole Grosjean thing, that he just kind of waited for the tires to fall out underneath Grosjean. Ocon, it was not the same thing. He was attacking Stroll all race long, got past him towards the end. They just both did very well for where that car is, as Yhancy described.
Yeah.
Second best team of the weekend, Red Bull. And it's, we know Max is the number 3 car and driver. It's just gonna whatever. The year we know that's what's gonna happen, right? But just talent wise, it's clear he's much better than Bottas, kind of in line with Lewis. And
I think he's pretty close to Lewis.
He's pretty close to Lewis.
Yeah.
And all it takes is, like today, we almost had it where they could have just stolen a race, but it didn't end up playing out that way. Max had it was such a lonely race for him that he was calling back to his pit wall, telling them, guys, make sure you drink water, stay hydrated. It's not.
That was to wake him up, by the way.
When do you hear that? Yeah. And there's really not much to talk about here with Max, because it's just, as Mercedes is dominant, Max is dominant behind them.
I think you mentioned this a few weeks back. And I think that Max is going to have to, we'll see how everything shakes out the next few years. But Max really has to start asking himself this question. Is this the right team for me to bring me to a championship? Because it's clear that if he's in the right car, he's winning the championship. He is that good. That Red Bull car, just looking at the gap between him and Albon, you don't know the true pace of the car. It's somewhere in the middle. And if it's somewhere in the middle, then that car really doesn't belong in second place. And it also doesn't belong as far back as Albon finished, because I don't think it's that bad. So Max really has to ask himself, where is this team going, and is it going to improve enough to put me in the position to win a championship? Because he clearly is a world champion, and he needs the hardware to prove it.
Yeah, Max has shown that he could drive the wheels off the car, like you always say, Yhancy. Mm-hmm. And I think that was part of the promises that were made to him to resign with Red Bull.
Yes,
not to go anywhere else. That they were going to put him in a championship, type of car. I just hope that if he does move on, the same fate that happened to Lewis when he left McLaren to go to Mercedes, and look at what happened. Mm-hmm. I would like for him to go to a team that's going to be pretty much on top, and you're able just to, they need somebody at his pace just to get it over the top.
And I think Red Bull is that team. We've seen flashes of Red Bull being, very good in calling strategy, especially when things go haywire in the race and things don't go as expected. They're very good at adjusting to it. Their pit crew's amazing. The engineers are amazing. What they did in Hungary to fix Max, was it Hungary and fix Max's car?
Yeah.
That was amazing. I think the team is good.
So what are they missing?
They can't start off right, bro. They just can't start off right. And also,
what are the mission was?
The engine power.
Engine power?
Yeah, their engine power, their engine is never really that good. It's not obviously, and there's no engine in F1 that's up to part of the Mercedes engine at this point. That's a wash. But they also suffer from starting bad off the blocks. They eventually understand the car, make a very good car, and at the end you can see they become very competitive. But just starting off the blocks, that car is very tricky to drive. And I think that the only reason that they have that car up there fighting the Mercedes is because Verstappen is that type of driver that can adapt to the car and drive the wheels off of it.
They're missing something. They have to be missing something. They have to be missing something because, like Yhancy says, they start bad, which forces them to accelerate their development throughout the year to get to start matching some other people. So they have to get a package from the get-go. Maybe at the factory when they're off, they think their package is up to par. Then it comes to the beginning of the year, oh crap, no, we're not.
Very few teams win when they start from behind. And that's in any sport. And the last few years, that's what Red Bull has done. They've started from behind.
What are they missing was? It's tough to get your hands on it.
It's tough to get my hand wrapped around it because, number one, Max is doing so well.
On what we're saying, a crappy car kind of stuff.
Well, so here's my thing, and here's leading into Albon's weekend. That car is built towards Max, and it was something that was happening back in 2018 where Max got the preferential treatment for the upgrades, and now we see that it's a car tailor-made for this guy. Red Bull coming into the weekend, they admitted that the car for Alex Albon it's not really balanced all that well. So is the true pace of that car somewhere between them? And they're just giving an advantageous car to Max to be able to try and compete and put themselves in that position that he's in? Or I don't know. Red Bull has all the money in the world. Like if we talk about Mercedes and Ferrari and their budget, it's the same thing with Red Bull.
Listen, if all the issues that are happening with Albon's car were to be happening to Max, he'll be blowing up a gasket right now.
They already did in 2017 and 2018.
Exactly.
Right?
I think at the big, I think that whole season we went over it the other day.
Yeah.
It was
like seven
or 8 DNFs or something,
and then 11 between the two cars in 2018. It was crazy.
And then I think 2018 it was the Ricciardo that was suffering from most of the DNFs, and I think that was the year that Ricciardo decided to leave for Renault.
Right. So they switched from the Renault to the Honda engine, and if you guys recall, last year's contract with Max Verstappen was if he was not third in the, I think it was the driver standings after Belgium or during the break, he could nullify that contract. I think that was their clause, promising him, hey, look, this car is going to be good. It's going to be reliable, because a lot of their problems were in the reliability. So moving from Renault to Honda, they said, okay, I think we have this fixed, and here is your car that won't break down as much, allowing you to be competitive.
I think also it'll be interesting to see going into next year how much they can improve the car, because more or less the car is staying the same.
Yes.
And we know that Red Bull, I mean, obviously starting off, they're not very good, but going forward and developing a car that's good, they're top of the line up there with Mercedes. So if the car's not changing next year, and if Honda, it seems like Honda, I wouldn't say they're up to part of the Mercedes engine, but they can at least compete with the Mercedes engine going forward. Yeah, but again, we're talking about this season because Max is ready to win now.
Yes. So, and he wants it.
Yeah.
Albon, we already talked about early in the race. The collision with what's his name? Kevin Magnussen. He had to pit, but after the safety car came in. So it really kind of screwed him up as far as just his track position. So he was fighting from behind the whole time. He pitted again later on. He was the first to go on the hard, so they started to have degradation issues earlier in the race than everybody else on the hard. So he pitted onto mediums, and that allowed him to really charge. He was like He was a good maybe 10 seconds behind even the Latifi Williams car during the race at some point because he pitted. He pushed, got back up to 8th, passed Sebastian Vettel, passed Lance Stroll. He needs to
get over the jitters.
It's a couple of things, right? It's the jitters, the car's imbalanced, and then he does not have the confidence in the team. We heard it. What was it in Austria? Guys, why did you put me into traffic?
Yeah.
Hungary. After Hungary, they switched his engineer to have a little more experience on his side. He does not have the confidence in the team, and it's affecting the way he's driving.
Yeah, but here's why. Yeah, he's in the hot seat, but here's why I don't think he's Gasly level hot seat yet.
You think Vettel's going in that hot seat?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You are wrong, Ruben, on this. They're not waiting for, or Vettel's not waiting for them. But
we shall see.
But what Albon has shown is that even if he's put in difficult positions, race day, he's still able, regardless, and today was like, the beginning of that race for him was like a total show. You know, he obviously made the mistake, in my view, made the mistake of going for a gap that didn't exist.
Sure.
You know? And then he wound up, you know, pitting for better tires. And he, you know, we were watching the GPS data, and he
was back.
He was back. Like, he was way back. And to finish 8th, at least finishing the points, shows that he has the mental fortitude to fight back. But again, he has to get over his jitters. I think they're rookie mistakes, obviously. And I wouldn't call him a rookie, but it's a second year. And remember, it's only a second year in F1, his first full year with Red Bull. So you got to cut him a little bit of slack in that. I think he has shown that he is a little bit more aggressive than Gasly was. And I think he'll be better if they just changed his engineer to Simon Rennie. I think that's his name. And he was the race engineer for Daniel Ricciardo when he was on the team. So they brought him back. He was at the factory. They brought him back to the racetrack. I think that'll help him a lot because you have an experienced engineer. And we'll see where it goes. I think he still has it in him. I know Wellington doesn't like him. But
it's not that I don't like him. It's just I am not. You know, when you compare him to Max, I'm just not convinced. But
you can't compare him to Max, man. Max is different.
How would we be talking about him if he did not have the first crash with Hamilton last year, the second one this year, the crash with the Racing Point this year?
He could have won that race this year too.
He would likely be 4th in the constructors.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, in the drivers standing right now, he's 6th.
Yeah, I think that the fact that he had that running with Hamilton, was it the first race?
Yes.
He had running with Hamilton in the first race. I think that kind of started, you know, kind of tipped the dominoes, and it's been going totally downhill. But considering that all of this stuff has happened to him, and he's still able to pull out decent results compared to, you know, considering what happened to him during the race. Obviously, he's not up to pace with Max, but he has been able to salvage race and score points, which is a lot more than what Gasly was doing last season.
I think he just needs to do his own race, as far as like just believe in yourself that you're going to do it good because you're a good driver. That's why you're there. I don't think that he should put his goal to beat Max. It's going to be almost impossible to beat. Max is untouchable.
Yeah,
but his goal
as a
should
racing
be
driver, it's what you have to do. You have to be.
Yeah, his goal should be let me close the gap. Let me get closer and closer as I keep settling into my position within the team. Mm-hmm. Teams are going to get better. You know, the team already started giving you tools to fix you, which new race engineer with experience, and that's going to help you settle down. And by settling down and not having a cloud over your head, because that's what he has right now, you know, being with the pressure, forced to perform, and all the other stuff, he will climb up.
Right.
I just hope Red Bull does not get desperate and signs Vettel and get rid of him.
Vettel's not going to Red Bull. I'm staking my claim in this.
What you got was?
Prove me wrong.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to talk here about Mercedes, right? And they dominated the weekend. Like they were so far out ahead. Like even on the GPS, like the data, the map, it was crazy how far out ahead they were. We saw Bottas pressuring Lewis Hamilton. He kept it within 2 seconds.
Call that pressure?
Listen,
Come on.
Mercedes
Hamilton usually is out 7-8 seconds ahead.
Mercedes today, it looked like they were the only team racing because they were the only. Obviously, they have the pace above everybody else, but they were the only ones that looked like they were in a race because they did not let off of each other.
Yeah.
Meaning Bottas kept it close, so Lewis couldn't come down.
Yeah. So
I admittedly wasn't even paying attention to.
There's no point.
No, nobody was, but it was because they were so far. They were so far ahead. Max was in third place, and it was like a quarter lap down. The Max was in third place by himself.
So was it a mistake to keep it that close? Because that could have played into the tire wear.
That's pretty much what I was telling you earlier. When we were watching the race, would it have been a good call to tell both drivers, hey, stay in your position. We have to slow down if we want to finish this race.
Well, let's go over exactly what happened at the end.
So here's what happened at the end.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you exactly how. I'm going to play exactly how it went down. Bottas's front left tire literally told him this.
To whom it may concern.
The tire,
talk about karma.
yeah. So the tire pop was done. Unfortunately, he was on the start-finish straight, so he had to do one. They were very far ahead. He had to do one full lap on 3 tires. His tire didn't get to the point where it started damaging the floor, luckily, but it allowed for Max Verstappen to overtake him.
And I think by the time he reached the pits, Charles already passed him too.
Yeah. So,
and we're talking about 2 cars that were really far behind from them because they were up front. They could have pitted and still came out in the right.
They were about, I would say, anywhere from 25 to 30.
So they
seconds
both could have
ahead.
pitted and still be in front of Max with fresh tires.
Yeah, but they didn't want to. They didn't want to give up track position, which I understand.
Because of what happened in Hungary,
because you don't know where Max's tires were. Max was saying that his tires were actually okay. So if your tires are degrading, and we know Max is fast enough to close a gap,
no, that's what I'm saying.
Especially when he smells blood.
They didn't want to risk like what happened, I believe, in Hungary. That towards the end, Lewis pits, but he actually came out at the pits super close to Max.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they wanted to run that again because the scenario could not help you. It could play against you.
Yeah. I feel like by lap 30, they were already talking about how their tires were degrading and blistering, and they even showed a shot on it.
Bottas's tire looked very bad. It was reminiscent, and then you mentioned it the last podcast was reminiscent when you went into your darkness mode and mentioned Ferrari.
Yeah.
The darkness. I mentioned Ferrari to spite me, I think it was.
Always.
It was very reminiscent where the tires just blew out on both of the cars.
Yes.
And I thought actually Lewis was going to hold out. And Lewis got lucky, man. Lewis got lucky. If it was one more lap left, Verstappen would have caught up to him and would have taken that win from him.
Or if it was one more lap left, he would have to pit because he would not finish the race.
Yeah, but and it's unfortunate for Bottas because he drove well, obviously. And he Mercedes. Again, the gap was only around 2-3 seconds from Lewis, which shows you how good Lewis is.
Mercedes 1-2 was lost by the team. The 1-2 today that they would for sure to have the team lost.
I guess so. I mean,
they should have pitted even if it was a free pit.
Man, you know what? I don't think it was so clear. I think that you're getting to the end of the race. Remember, all of this stuff happened in the last lap.
Yeah, Bottas had 10 seconds on Verstappen. You can't pit him. Yeah, man.
Bottas happened in lap 50, right?
Yeah, around there. Yeah, actually, and then but like I said, we were talking about how Verstappen should be pushing because the Mercedes tires were done.
Yeah.
They didn't have room to. Actually, yeah, they both didn't have room because if Bottas was 10 seconds ahead, Hamilton was 12, 13 seconds ahead of Verstappen.
Yeah.
So neither of them could pit ahead of Max.
No, what I'm saying is that they were I think they were further ahead, but you just run the risk.
No, he said at the end. Max and Lewis finished like about a couple of seconds.
They finished like 5 seconds,
but they were ahead by over 25 seconds.
Yeah, it was
before the.
It was almost like 30 seconds, but the problem it was like 25 seconds. But it was too close of a gap for you to pit, and then come out on top. Even if and then you're gonna be it's gonna be fresh tires, but the tires are cold. It was too much of it was you're gonna need another lap, which you just didn't have to get those tires up to temperature.
I don't think they had that.
Yeah, they had.
I don't. We'll check, but I don't know. Because we were talking about how Max was 10 seconds down, and if he had pitted, it would have been 30 seconds, and he wouldn't have had time to make up with the tires.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. It was we were talking about them pitting maybe like 5 laps before the end. So
and then they built out more of a lead. I don't think so.
No, they didn't build out more of a lead. They held the lead. But what we're saying is that if Hamilton or even Bottas were to pit for new tires, it would be too close for them, too close of a gap for them to bank on that win. And they had track position. They had that 1-2 in hand. And this is why they race. This is why you have to watch the races, even if they're boring, because this race was boring. But at the end, it got great because all of this stuff happens because things just go wrong.
Yeah.
So, and then, Bottas drops all the way back. Lewis Hamilton got lucky that his tire went, I think it was halfway through the lap, which is still a long way from the start-finish line. He got lucky, but he did win the race on merit. I mean, he should have won that race. But this is why they race, because things can go wrong. Mechanically, things can go wrong. Things with the tires can go wrong. Strategically, in a pit stop, something can go wrong. This is why you must watch the entire race, because at the end, things get good. And this is what happened with this race. That race was saved by those tire punctures. It was very interesting to see what happened at the end.
And the reaction from it.
Yeah, and the reaction was awesome.
Yeah.
But I don't think that. I think Mercedes did the right thing. Hindsight is always 20/20. You see the media coverage, you see the articles right after saying, "Oh, did Red Bull lose Max the race?" And
you see the Nico Rosberg with the fire in the background.
Yeah,
is Bottas' career over?
Yeah, no, man. I think we all would have made that call. Yeah, stay out. It's only a lap left or 2 laps left. We've been nursing these tires. Let's get it to the end. Obviously, it didn't work out for them. But they still got the race win. Mercedes car won. So
can't wait for next week.
Look,
me too. But I don't want to see Mercedes win again.
Well, don't watch the race.
Yeah.
The only thing that really affected
maybe their tires blow out.
Was
they're going to use softer tires for next race.
It's now Lewis Hamilton will now just run away with the whole thing. Bottas would have scored the 18 points to Lewis Hamilton's 25. Hamilton, I believe, is now up. Hold on, let me bring that up. Hamilton is now up 30 points, and 25 of that came today. So it just kind of robbed us of a potential. Is Bottas going to be able to challenge for the title? Now it's looking really ugly.
Well, if Hamilton has a DNF for any reason, and Bottas wins the race.
When was the last time Hamilton even had a DNF?
Yes. I can't even remember. The collision with Rosberg?
Listen, it was after that.
After that? No, I'm just saying.
We can always hope.
Yeah, I mean, we can.
To at least make it competitive. I'm not rooting against Hamilton, but I want to see somebody else win.
Any other thoughts on the race, Ruben?
No, it's just that. I think for next weekend will be super interesting because we're coming now with 3 different compounds that they're bringing or something.
They're bringing in softer compounds. Instead of being a one-stop race, which one this was, if it went without all the safety cars, would have been a one-stop race. I think with the softer compounds, you're guaranteeing a 2-stop race, which makes the strategy a little bit more interesting. And we'll see how long the tires last, and we'll see how the temperatures are.
And hoping that because they're going to be softer compound, they're going to have more grip, and we could have a little more competition.
So what we're seeing is just to clarify that the mediums and the hards this week are going to be the softs and the mediums next week. Is that accurate, or am I saying it reverse? Yeah,
Reverse.
I'm saying it
Yeah.
reverse.
No, you're
The
saying
soft-
reverse, yeah.
And the medium this week will be the medium and the hard next week.
Yes.
And they'll bring in, I don't know, like a purple tire for next week.
Well, what used to be a purple
Yeah, yeah.
tire, yeah. Well,
Hypersoft.
they're just bringing a step down, softer. What happens, and for those that are new to F1, when you have a softer tire, the softer tire tends to give you more grip, but it degrades faster.
Yes.
So you can get temperature faster in the so you can get better grip on the track, but it won't last as long as a medium or even a hard tire. Now, the harder tire, it takes longer for you to warm them up, and you'll get a sweet spot, but it'll also won't give you the same amount of grip as a softer tire, and it won't degrade as fast, but it won't be as fast. So it's a trade-off between those two. Am I correct in what I said?
Yeah, I think
And the grip translates to lap time.
Exactly. The more grip you have through the corners, the faster you can get through there.
I think in an early episode we went into more details regarding the tires that we did.
Possible.
That we could put that in the show notes so you can see it.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys, for this race?
No, I'm looking forward to the next race because of the
Hulkenberg situation.
It's a
the
lot of
Hulkenberg
things.
situation, the softer tires, which it'll be a little bit of a different story than we got this
hope it
this
rains.
race.
Ooh.
And it's very possible at Silverstone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very possible at Silverstone. I'm just hoping that we can get a different result, just like we did in Austria. That the story of the race will be different than what happened from the first race. It won't be a carbon copy, and I think they guaranteed that with the softer tires.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see how the teams manage the softer tires if it doesn't rain, with the hotter temperatures. And maybe we'll get some tire blowups or something to make things interesting.
Listen, I'm just glad we're racing, because of the times that we're going through.
Yeah.
Races are happening. There's
something to look forward to.
overcoming the objectives that happen. They're happening, with people getting tested positive and stuff like that, and still having races going on and making them, even though the middle of this race was super boring, but races are happening. It's telling us to watch all the way to the end because of things that are happening.
Yes.
And I'm glad we're part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we Wellington was saying while we were watching the race that this has to be the most boring race so far this year, and I don't think it is the most boring race so far this year just because of what happened to the end. So the end can save it. So keep watching.
The end definitely woke us up.
Yes, just keep watching, man. You never know what twist will come.
So on that note, we'll sign off, but I just want to make sure that you guys are aware. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart Radio, YouTube. I feel like I'm missing one, but follow us on Instagram at Jump to Start Racing. Follow us on Twitter, JTSR Podcast at JTSR Podcast, and just visit our website, www.jumptostartracing.com. Also email us, jumptostartracing@gmail.com.
We're looking forward to hearing from you guys.
Absolutely.
Listen, we're everywhere.
Yes.
So you can't say you can't find us.
Exactly. Exactly.
And on that note, we'll talk to you guys next week or later in the week. See you later.
Peace.
Bye.